camera, but maybe she's commissioned. She wanted more money.
Maybe that's the case.
I mean, I'm not trying to call anybody a crook, but
I think she didn't read the leases.
I think we
Get
should
back to
clarify.
us.
Yeah.
We got plenty more on the agenda, get back to us.
all right, moving right
Thank
along.
you.
We have a motion and a second.
Can we, let's see, let's see, I wrote it down. Was Miss Williams, was it yours motion?
I motion to
Will
approve
you
it.
please withdraw?
I'm gonna withdraw that.
Mr. Miller? Yep, okay, all right, move right along. The draft ordinance
Draft
of
ordinance.
Harris Street, is that correct?
Yeah, so you guys know, we have 410 Harris Street out for requests for proposals that are due, I believe, on June 12th. And we're awaiting a response from any organization or group that is interested in leasing that property. I think Jennifer included the draft ordinance, which is also going to be included. It can't be accepted, okay? It can't be approved until we're able to fill in the names and numbers. So that ordinance would be the one that would be adopted once you have a group. But it is attached and included in the RFP for people to consider, and that was something that Jillian wanted us to.
No action needed? All right, we'll talk about the inn.
In at Blackstone, I think we had some concerns about music playing loudly for a wedding 3, 4, or 5 months ago. You guys probably got bombarded with
We
it.
can't do that again.
So what I have told the folks at the Inn at Blackstone is, if you're gonna have outside events, please tell us when they are and let council consider those. And you can put conditions and terms on those. And I think she's given you a list of dates when she has weddings and outside events scheduled.
Personally, I mean, I'm glad she's notifying us, but is this a request for waiver of noise ordinance, or?
It is. Not so much for the ceremony music, which is, you know,
That's already been.
that's fine. But the issues are not the ceremony music, but events like the courtyard event, live music, cookouts till 3 p.m. It's still a noise one. Those are the ones that I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about a violinist playing, you know, entry music.
All right, let's just go down the list. The first one has already been done.
Already been done.
I wasn't in
Just
town.
ceremony music.
I wasn't in town. But Mr. Page, Nash, Almond, that's in our neighborhood, did y'all have any on the first?
My house was rocking in November, all the way until like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. It was rocking. And I think a lot of people complained. There was that one wedding. Look, they have all these other events that doesn't bother me, but that one event was rocking.
We right here though.
June the first.
We right here though,
Yeah, I know
baby.
that, I know that.
Okay.
That's the problem, man.
Okay.
So, listen, I'm all Raj, I'm 100% Raj, but he's already violated noise ordinance.
That's why we're here tonight.
So, that's not acceptable, you know, to commit the crime and then seek permission. Although that's my motto in some
Wait, wait,
cases.
But they didn't get
You've
any-
heard that
they didn't
before,
get
right?
any complaints on the first.
Oh, well,
No, but when I said my house, I said the one in November. I
Oh,
wasn't
okay,
meaning, no,
okay.
no,
Well,
no,
I-
no,
Can confirm that there
all
was
right,
not-
so that was
no,
cool.
no, 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 no,
Okay,
no.
so
Yeah, so we're
But
we're
my,
back to the first. Nothing was complained on the first.
correct.
Okay, so let's go on to the eighth, please, and figure out what we're gonna do from that point on.
Well, the only thing I see here that might be a problem is the cocktail hour, but I don't think there's any wild music and cocktails.
the 8 to 10, you know.
I think that, I would like to say, I believe that the inn has made a substantial, investment in saving that building, so we're not having to blight it and tear it down. And they have recognized their past mistake with the noise ordinance, and I think this is their correction. And it sounds like they're willing to work with our police department and working with us by doing this. I would approve it as a batch, and I'll make a motion to do that.
Even the 10 o'clock music?
I think even approving the 10 o'clock music, I don't really have any doubt that if there was a complaint, an officer went over there and talked to them, I don't really have a doubt that it would be adjusted. I think they want to be here for the long haul.
So Mr. Almond has moved to approve this entire slate of June and July. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Miller seconds. Is there any discussion?
I agree with Mr. Allman, because as of the information that they have submitted to us as of today, the only time that they will be doing anything past normal work hours is on this coming weekend on the 8th. Everything else, according to what they have submitted, will be ending at a decent time, during decent hours.
Can we, can our clerk notify those that we've had, complaints from?
We can send out
One
letters.
resident on Seventh Street, I just wanna make sure that everybody's aware of what is
Well,
gonna happen.
not just, I mean, I live 2 houses from the end of Blackstone, you know that. I mean, they have a very large property line. And I get it, I've played out there, noise travels, but if you're gonna do it outside, you know, you can have dancing out there without blasting the entire neighborhood with shaking my house, you know, and the guy behind me, you know.
I mean, I think that they've learned from the previous mistakes.
Yeah, they don't want any more troubles than what they had with that.
That's
one.
why they submitted this.
And you're right about that, Mr. Page. That's the craziest place I've ever seen because it was actually louder at your home than it was standing there, standing there in the street looking at it. It was crazy. I couldn't find it. It sounded like it was coming from Mr. Nash's residence. I rode down there, and I said, well, the only place I can think it could be is at the end. And I found it. But it was loud as all get out on your block and the previous block you
And the
lived.
block behind me, yeah, that's
But it
7th
was
Street.
quiet
7th Street.
on 7th.
Mr. Moncur's old house.
And I don't wanna get away, I'm not complaining about what the inn does. I'm just thinking when we get it later into the night,
Phase it back a little bit.
let's just, please tone it down just a tad, just a tad.
And it doesn't matter in which directions they have the speakers as well. I know that from going to school for, Mass communications.
Wait just a minute. Miss Wynn has the floor. Go ahead.
I know that from going to school for mass communications when I initially went straight from high school at Norfolk State. Depending on the direction of the speakers, that'll also have a major effect on how loud and how far the music and the noise will go.
Conversation with Diane.
Right.
If they point them towards the cemetery, that's the best spot, you know what I mean?
Hold on. You had a question?
Yeah, so I will, am I notifying like everybody along college or just?
Do we need to notify anybody?
I think the gentleman that complained so vehemently last
Okay.
time.
I'm for approval of this, I just think we can handle this through conversation, that's all.
Do you want to put a small ad in the paper?
No.
You just wanna do,
It's this weekend, you can't do it.
yeah, okay.
So, but like, I was gonna say, if I notify everybody and then they say, oh, we don't want it, it's too late, we
It's
don't
a
want it.
courtesy to
What's
say,
a
hey,
courtesy
just know
notification?
that This has been approved up to 10 o'clock.
For your awareness.
If there's any issues, contact the police of it being too loud.
Sounds good to me. Any more
Just put it on
discussion?
Facebook.
And we'll have the discussion with the entity themselves and say, hey, guys, you know,
I will talk to Diane. and
all right,
make
thank
sure
you.
I'm gonna ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of approving this slate of, the ends, activities so far as noise ordinance, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Prince Edward bus funding.
Well, this is a perfect segue to let you guys know that on Friday, the state notified us that Prince Edward nor the town of Blackstone are currently being actively considered to provide water to the town of Crew, that right now the state wants to work with the town of Crew exclusively and get a proposal from them. So we're looking at a 60, 90 days. I can't say it's gone. But it's kind of ironic as we go through this, that this is the first time that Prince Edward County decided not to fund the bus system. And I don't know if they're coupling between the two issues, but who knows?
I had asked if the county finance committee meeting the ridership numbers, so just because of the pettiness of this, it's gonna affect over a year's time, 922 riders, just for some petty stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's gonna affect more of the Prince Edward residents.
Correct.
So they're biting their nose off despite their residents. I didn't
gonna
say
show
that,
us,
did
I
I?
just-
I just wanted to.
Hey, do we-
That's why I asked for it.
Can I ask you a question? What did that route consist of?
The Pat A route,
Yeah, this one right here we talking about.
it went through, Prince Edward, and it had the stops through going towards Farmville, and then it had the 2 stops in Farmville, the Visual Arts Center steps, and then it went towards Amelia, and then it would go back towards Farmville, and then back through Amelia again, and then come back to the bus station.
So remember, this is cutting out service to staff.
It's a nice sized little route.
Oh, Lord.
Lord.
I guess maybe Joe Hines came up with this idea.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it. Okay. Baycorp membership resolution.
There is a resolution attached for your consideration, and in order for us to participate in the VACOR, and last council meeting, town council voted to enter an agreement for 1 year with Virginia, or VACORP, which is VACOR, which is, as you read the documents, the Virginia Association of Counties Insurance Program. We've been with Versa for some time. The cost differences, the council voted to go with a plan that was $215,000 a year as opposed to $239,000 a year, which was the Versa, and they need the resolution.
Move to approve, the mayor and or be assigned to sign the VACOR member agreement, workman's comp addendum, line of duty act addendum, and
Mr. Nash has moved to approve these items presented, and Mr. Almond has seconded. Is there any discussion?
Any concerns with it?
Don't see anything spooky.
I ask for a voice vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1.
I voted against it. Why would I vote to enter the agreement?
What's next, Mr. Manager?
I think we're gonna do DBI director in closed session, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So we can talk about electric rates, and these are several items that were discussed by the finance committee, and Anthony did it for you. Ashley can explain many of these, but basically what we're attempting to do is take the existing large commercial customer rates and tiers, and the current tiers include 4 tiers on the sheet, and showing the largest users paying 8.6 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay?
costing us 9 cents.
And we're buying power over 9 cents. Okay. So this is one of the goals that we want to try to resolve in the budget process this year, and the finance committee, and jump in, Eric, if you would like to, have agreed with the recommendation, and that is a very similar looking sheet. That's a very similar looking sheet, but it basically gets rid of 2 of the tiers. And you still have that first, instead of it being 2,500 to 3,000 kilowatt hour, we're just saying the first 3,000 kilowatt hour have a rate, my glasses, 11.3 cents, and all commercial customers or demand meter customers over 3,000 kilowatt hours a month would be at 9 cents, 9.05 cents, which is the estimated VEMA rate that they're gonna bill us for.
So if you look, this is my original bill for the DecoDen. It shows that $923.55 as is with current rate. So they inputted those numbers, and at the new rate, it would be $939.31. So it would go up $15.
We believe this will get us, to where we're
Not
above
losing
where we should be. We're currently selling power for less than we were making it for. We think this will get us where we should be, and we'd like to try this for a year and then review it at the end and see if we need to make any more adjustments.
And this is just for demand.
Demand meter.
Yeah,
It
demand
does
meter.
not-
This is not
it's small
residential.
residential.
I don't have a problem with it, but there may be people listening that would not understand why in the world we would sell power for cost. So what's your answer to
Because
that?
we've been selling it for below cost.
Okay, well, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
That's why we
So-
wanna,
Correct. I mean,
we
I
also
think
don't wanna jump completely on these businesses that have invested in our town.
Well, I don't either, but I'm
We're
just
also not
saying,
sure what
if somebody stops me in Walmart and asks me why are we selling power to somebody for cost, I don't have an answer. So,
You know,
you're not selling it all for cost. You're
Okay.
selling the first tier at your
2 cents over.
2 cent profit or whatever. you wanna call it.
absolutely.
you know, and I hear a lot, and I'm a big advocate for business, but residents invest a lot into this town too. You know, they buy homes, they pay power, they pay utilities, and they don't get free utilities. They don't get free power up to certain kilowatts. And I
No,
understand-
no, no, we're talking something different. This is just a kilowatt hour rate. What Mr. Page is talking about, there's 20 kilowatts provided to each customer free
on the business side.
on the business side.
That's not free though. You still pay for those kilowatts. It's just you're
Charged
getting
the
the
demand.
demand.
The high
Is
peak
that
demand,
what-
but we're getting charged at demand, and so generally if we have a cost.
No, you're not getting
There's
charged
no
for
demand
demand.
charge on residential.
No,
No, I'm not talking about the residential, I'm talking on the business side, the town's being charged for it.
We do get charged for demand.
but that's reflected in the rate.
That's
That-
reflected.
That's reflected in the rate.
But this is an attempt also to leaven the situation so that commercial customers are paying, I guess, more. And so.
Their
that we
fair
don't-
share, their fair share, may I say?
They're paying more, their fair share, however we describe it, because the residential rates are higher
The residents
than
pay.
per kilowatt hour than the commercial rate. So we're trying to
Balance it,
rectify that a little bit.
trying to balance it.
Trying to
I'm
balance it.
sorry,
Do we
I
wanna-
missed the-
We wanna try this for a year and then see where we end up at the end of the year to see if it needs to go higher or where we're at.
I must be confused, cause I'm pretty sure in your budget proposal, you were discussing removing from 20 free down to 15.
And
not-
then
So-
the committee did not make a recommendation to you to do
So this is something separate.
This is just the tiers, trying to get those tiers that are now being sold at below cost kilowatt hour to
To
a
get the
kilowatt
tiers
hour
right.
rate at least equivalent to what we pay for power, which is 9.05 cents per kilowatt hour.
It's also confusing because the demand charge and the kilowatt hours need to be separated into what they actually are. Kilowatts is how much you use at one time as a demand. It's how much you pull. Like if you turn on all your air conditioners for 1 second, you can pull 20 kilowatt hours at one time. It's not a per hour charge. That's why that's why they're denoted differently. Kilowatts versus kilowatt hours. Kilowatt hours is how much power you actually use. Kilowatts is how much you demanded at one time.
The highest throughout the month, and you get 20
You could
of
have only
that
put
free.
30 seconds, but for
Yeah.
that whole month, you charge that high
Yeah.
multiplier.
The demand meter sets and it doesn't move for the rest of the month. If you, on the coldest day of the year, get up in the morning and you turn every light in your house and the heat and everything, bam, you're gonna hit that demand
So,
charge. And
like,
then
if you look at mine, I have a multiplier in my bill, it says by 40. Well, we're doing the first 20, not for free, but the first 20
Demand.
is forgiven, I guess you'd say. So then, and I can tell you, my demand may last for all of 5 minutes. And so the rest of the month, I'm getting
It's sort of like
a pretty penny because of my 5 minutes of turning on the AC.
It's like if you're driving your car and you got the little MPG gauge on the top, tells you exactly what you're getting at the moment, you floor it for 1 second, you get 1 MPG, but then the rest of the month you drive around at 40, you're getting charged for that demand, that one time you press the pedal to the floor, regardless of how much gas you use for the rest of the month.
And that's to offset the cost of the power plant being able to meet that demand. That's all it is.
This change here on the tier, this is just for the first tier, right?
we're adjusting from 4 tiers down to 2. And
Oh,
it
okay.
was under 2,500, 2,500 to 3,000, and then there were 2 additional tiers above that, and really big, like 50 to.
3,000 to 50,000 and 50,000 and above.
Yeah, so we're going down to 2 tiers, under 3,000 and above 3,000.
So basically, this is what the finance committee is gonna have in the budget. And this is
We're not
time, just,
Changing anything budget-wise because we don't know
We
how
don't
it
know the
will affect
impact of
us.
so you don't need any action tonight.
No, I think we need to advertise these electric rates in the budget. So whenever you agree to what to advertise,
Do you need a motion from council to agree,
yeah, I think that would take care of it.
Mr. Chairman?
It was a recommendation from the full committee, 3-0, so yes, I make that recommendation. So moved.
Mr.
And this is
Nash
for a
moves.
year.
Can I have a
To
second?
try,
We're gonna,
yeah.
we're gonna reevaluate at the end of the year.
But the budget doesn't reflect any more money
Because we
to
don't
the
know what
town.
it will be.
But if we get some more, then we'll know next year, and we can increase the revenue.
We anticipate 1.5% to 2% is what the anticipation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
I have something to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's a good idea to try. However, when we first started this discussion, I was totally confused.
Trust me,
So,
this is a very good
when we
news.
put that out to the public, everybody's gonna come here to us, cause they're gonna be totally confused. So I think we better change the terminology and put it straightforward so people can understand
I
it.
think one thing that may be helpful, instead of saying kilowatts free, putting in there the
Included.
demand and how
Yeah.
specific to the demand.
Cause this house, this room gonna be filled up with questions, but they gonna
We
understand.
sat here
Amen.
during the committee for 30 minutes just trying to understand.
Well, do y'all have a problem with saying instead of free, included?
Yeah, that change in the first 20 KW, we need to change it first 20 demand, or whatever, however the terminology really needs to be.
We figured that each meter, if we were to go from 20 to 15 free kilowatts, it would be approximately a $50 a month increase per account.
You know, Ben and I don't always agree, but selling power for the same rate that we're getting it, I mean,
We'll
just
give it a
rubs me
year,
the wrong
and
way,
we
man.
Change it, but electric rates are high as the devil. But the simple fact is, and I'm getting on the soapbox, we've been handed bad energy policy by the state and the federal government. And we've gone up 25% in 2 years. The 2 years previous was 25%.
Yeah, and the residents are paying, and you're making a profit on that, and the businesses are paying less than what we get it for.
But we really don't
Sorry?
know.
Excess revenue,
Right.
profits, bad word.
Excess revenue, excuse me. But the businesses,
Big
I
problem.
don't think that demand is,
We have fire trucks. We have things.
I think ultimately, and again, we don't know this as the three on the committee. I think ultimately, a business is probably paying more than their fair share when it comes to that demand, because of the fact that if you're not pulling constantly, you're actually being charged for that whole entire month, for that.
Fair assumption. They're getting an additional charge that a
That was the
resident doesn't.
question I had.
yeah, so even though they're
That's not
paying,
fair.
yeah, even though they may be paying 90,
Not fair.
that 90 cents, or that 9 cents,
You're getting it.
they're just not, we're not talking about the demand. That's why we need to wait a year to see how the numbers come out.
See how
at
it
the end of
turns
the year.
out.
yeah,
Trust me, it's not perfect. And
yeah.
I can tell you, we don't even know it. Philip and Dan were out there, and
They didn't-
Philip was even confused if you watch the video. He was like, "Oh yeah, you are right, Jake."
Well,
I never said
I
that.
think I'd be remiss,
All right, Mr. Perfect.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't make this statement. I know the four of y'all are on top of this. You know, I've got a great finance committee, and I think y'all doing your due diligence. So I'm gonna keep my mouth shut about it. But it just, I'm worried that,
only 4
I'm
years.
worried that I'm too stupid to explain it to somebody in Walmart. That's what I'm
Well,
worried about.
and I can tell you, you can probably say, "Hey, it's so convoluted, none of us understand it 100%."
I have your contact information. I'm just playing with you, Mr. Nash. All right, so you need a motion. What do you need?
I think a motion to, and you can include it in your motion to advertise, but certainly either now or as a total with the budget. You need to-
Yeah,
need to-
you too. Yep. Yep, so we already, Mr. Nash has moved and Mr. Almond second. Any more discussion? I'm gonna ask for a roll call vote, beginning with Mr. Page.
Aye.
Aye.
This motion carries 6-0. Next,
Next item up for business,
You have on that next page is the fire department Christmas bonus, that was from the account fund.
if you wanna do that, I was gonna jump the other stuff. That's fine. The Christmas bonuses, for the fire department, I think there was some discussion, I think the mayor made some comments as well.
well,
Maybe
now,
Mr.
I wanna
Page.
clarify that. Mr. Page is the one that had the idea,
Mr. Page, yeah.
and I endorse it. So we do get along sometime, Mr. Page.
Sometimes.
And if I'm not mistaken, the recommended, increase was to,
The committee 201, me abstaining, agreed to do the example one.
which would take it to 75 and 50. From its current 50 and 25?
Mr. Chairman, are you moving to
I am not,
you're not? Oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
I was just informed.
All right, so Mr. Almond moves to use option number 1, is that correct?
Correct.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Williams seconds, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
That motion carries 501.
I know,
I'm sorry, just for budget purposes, do you want this in the budget we're discussing now,
You
or?
don't have to.
Yes,
and I
yes.
know you guys appreciate anything you get, I'd like you guys to be able to take your family out to dinner, you know what I mean?
Agreed. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, all right.
All right,
And in the last page there, it's, I think account finance asked about meal tax for the 501(c)(3) companies, and, Brittany put the letter in here, and then showed the meals tax stuff, and that was from account finance also.
But that's informational.
Well, I think that they were asking if meal tax was really, if it was much more during these,
Oh, during the, yeah.
I think they were asking if it was
I don't think we need a formal motion at this time.
I think that's hard to see if you're not, if you haven't been tracking it, you know what I mean? So, right now Juneteenth's on its, what, 4th year? You have to go 5 years back to see what the meals tax was in June.
I
Well,
think
we only did the vendors themselves.
Oh, okay.
Is all we asked for.
Gotcha.
Not outside of the
Right.
vendors.
And I think some are still in arrears.
Are you comparing it June to June, or are you comparing it June to May?
I thought it should have been 100 and then 50. Yeah, I would support that. I would support that.
okay.
I got you.
All right,
Before we go any further, I'm gonna exercise my right to veto, and I'm gonna veto item, the first option. Is there, in
What options are you?
option number 1 on the fire department Christmas bonus? I prefer number 2. You can do what you want to, but I'm vetoing the first one. Is there a motion to override?
I motion that we override it.
You're overriding my veto.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion to override my veto? Hearing none, that motion fails. The floor is open now for additional, any other motions?
I will say that, well, you need to talk before, you have to have a motion first.
I motion that we go with example number 2 for the fire department Christmas bonus.
I'll second for discussion. I will say when I originally brought it up, I wanted to see that 150, 100 and then 50, like double what it was, because I think right now it's 25 and 50, and I wanted to go.
25 for juniors.
Yeah, I wanted to go to 50 and then 100. But when I saw y'all went for 75 and 50, I said, well, that's a reasonable compromise. But originally, I was hoping for it to be 100 and then $50 for junior. But if the mayor's going to veto what you have, I mean, I would definitely support example 2.
So we have a motion and a second to go with option number 2. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries 5-0-1. Thank y'all. I appreciate that.
Just fine, $3,200 more than budget.
Well, if I have to, I'll donate it. Okay? All right, next.
Next item. And we can do one or the other, but let's go to personal property tax. And I think
Where's it at?
personal property tax, front page should have a handle, 50% off.
That's not that one. Or that one.
Further we discussed, at the finance committee, the amount of personal property tax relief that we received from the state, beginning, I think, in 97 and 98. We received a static figure, and that figure is on the
Yeah, I don't got
page.
one. I don't got one. I don't have a packet.
Here, I'll take,
Okay.
Gormas's.
No, not this one. No.
Here. I'll take Gormas's. Yeah, I'll take Gormas's. Is that what?
It's not in your packet, it's a separate.
It's a separate.
Oh, okay. I thought you were looking at the other one.
60 other
It's
crap.
this
There you go.
right here.
Oh, okay, okay.
Did you
I
get
got
that
that.
one?
When
I
you're
got
done.
that.
This is real estate, I'm gonna say first.
This one,
97, 98.
Yeah, he got
blue
it.
top?
Yeah, I got it. See, I thought it was whatever this is.
The state was gonna get rid of, personal property tax, and I think their
I don't have
effort
that one.
started at 40% and did not move after that. The town received a static figure from the state in personal property tax relief, PPTRA, and the personal property tax relief that we received is $42,985.98, and it's the same figure every year. In order, and we did this last year, if you remember, we dropped our rates because the superinflated prices of vehicles had gone up so dramatically. Remember, so we instead of 85 cents, we went down to 72 cents, and we're pretty close. I think our numbers were we're good. I think 72 was right on. In order for us to move forward, we can stay at the current 72 cents. However, in order to match what the county's doing, you would be entitled, in my opinion, to go down to 39% relief. Okay? And if you look on that list, you'll see between 38 and 39% relief, they bring in approximately that same amount where the state provides. That's
I thought the state,
beginning with.
I thought the state reimbursed everything up to 35. So you could
35.
technically go down to 35.
May have it, but I thought it was 40%. But
Could,
the
yeah.
end result is they give us $42,000. And the equivalent of that $42,000 takes us to between 38 and 39. Okay?
The committee recommended leaving it at 60%.
The committee recommended, the county's at 41% now. So, but the recommendation from the committee was to stay where it is. We're not talking a lot of money. Every 10% brings in about $10,000.
Is that a unanimous vote? I thought you wanted to go down to, I think you said it was,
Well, I originally talked about it, and I thought about how much inflation is already hurting all of our citizens anyways, and how we have a $20 million budget, and I didn't see the need for extra revenue. I'd rather keep it in the citizen's pocket where it should be.
We had asked our town manager, do we need, he said no.
You've got before you a balanced budget. Depending on what you do tonight, will dictate whether you need it or not.
A balanced
Well, I mean-
budget, wait a minute, a balanced budget that $600 and some thousand short in the general fund.
well,
72.
on top of that,
672.
it's a budget that doesn't have a $750,000 expense in it that we have to pay by the end of the year. So when we say it's balanced,
It's really not.
it's not. You have other things that are supposed to be in there as well that aren't in there.
It is a balanced budget, but you'll have appropriations during the course of the year for it. So
Right, but to tell a citizen, we're presenting a balanced budget, knowing that you have a $750,000 expense that you have to expend by the end of the year, and you don't include it in your budget, that's not, but at least put it in the budget, and if you get a grant, great, or if you get financing for it,
Do
great.
you have a revenue to cover it? I can put it in there expense-wise, but I need to
But it's
follow
an,
up with a revenue.
but it is an expense that you know you're gonna undertake.
I'm
What's
gonna,
the
I
revenue?
think if we raise taxes to
What's the
provide
revenue?
$750,000 worth of money in 1 year, not a single one of us would be in this chair, and rightfully so.
no. But, I've asked y'all to consider the meals tax several times, and a 1% increase in the meals tax would take care of debt service, helping with the expense at the armory. I think, I would ask council to consider a 1% raise on the meals tax and earmark it specifically for the armory.
But if you're saying, your revenue comes from whatever loan or bond you're gonna do to pull it, but you just don't leave it out of the budget. I'm just saying, like, okay, so if you're gonna
Yeah,
take
in there, but
400 from
We've
here,
gotta have an equivalent revenue.
right, so you
What-
say,
That's what we discussed earlier, which is a tax increase to cover that debt service. But if it's a loan, you gotta pay it back.
I understand that.
So, no, you can't just say 750 in, 750 out. You gotta put your payment.
Well, and I agree with that. So if you know you're gonna expend that, it should be in your budget. I'm not saying that you have to raise taxes to cover 750,000, but the debt service on at least we've gotta figure out where that's gonna come from or what we're gonna do. We're presenting a budget that appears to be balanced and it's not, is what I'm saying.
It's balanced, but you guys have to decide what you wanna do with the last portion of it. You have a expense and revenue side.
That's what
Now,
this meeting was
you can
about.
do 'em as
but we're
appropriations
now
after
into
1st of
it, we're
July.
just getting to it.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I don't think these agenda items could be avoided.
No, it's fine.
So moving on from personal property, leaving it as is.
I mean, it's,
How much is the debt service
Well, you
on
know,
30,000?
hold on, I wanna say one thing. You know, we always holler about we short of money. We don't have money to do this, we don't have money to do that. But sometimes, we have to bite the bullet. And if it means, I've always said this, you can't just look out for your friends when you do this budget. And I'm not saying you did it, I'm not saying nobody does it. But what I'm saying, we keep on saying, well, these people can't afford this, or these people can't afford that. So what are we gonna do if they can't afford it?
Well, that's the problem. We have citizens out there that are struggling with bills and struggling with electrics and struggling with everything, and we're talking about putting more of a burden on them.
I agree.
I'm sure that the dollar goes a lot further in their own pocket than it does in council budget.
But
But I remind
Well,
you, by referendum, the taxpayer overwhelmingly obligated the town $2 million. Town funds,
And we have committed those funds.
right. I know about your ARPA argument, and it makes
Don't
sense.
say my money,
Okay.
because it's the town of Blackson's money. We used ARPA funds that could have been put in the citizens' pocket, relieving their bills to pay garments.
Okay. It's a good point.
So the problem is the county, and it's nothing against the county, they're in an issue right now, is that there's gonna be a 20% increase this year, possibly.
That's not on us. That's on the
It's on your
county.
citizens, Chris.
I understand it, but
It's on your
it
citizens.
affects me too. But you know, this personal property tax, if you went down to what the rate that Jake was talking about, would affect me by $3. And I get it, and I understand that. But this town, it's a very progressive town. We're moving. We're doing economic things. We're doing events. We're trying to bring people to town. We say we want to have tourism, and we have a tourism committee. We don't put no money to bringing people here. I'm just saying, we're providing extra tax relief on top. And I'm not one to raise taxes, but if you're gonna raise it, at least get what we're supposed to get. Or lower the tax rate to offset it. Bring it down to 35 and lower the tax rate to offset it. At least, why have a tax rate with 60% relief? Go down to what the state gives us and move the tax rate down to balance it off. At least something to make it a little more clean.
I don't have any problem lowering the tax rate. I make a motion for that right now.
We get a better accurate.
60% where we're not talking about 60% just to lower it. Yeah,
I'm
We
good.
had this HR position out here, nobody said nothing yet.
I wanna caution you, we need to walk out of here tonight
Yes,
with a plan.
yes.
And we can throw stuff, you wanna put $750 in, I'll put $750 revenue undesignated
Are
wherever it
you
comes
gonna
from.
spend it?
Huh?
Are you gonna spend it this year?
Is there a plan?
Are you gonna spend $750,000 this year?
I hope not.
Over there?
I hope not. Between what Chassie's working on, between approaches that we've made to the private sector, I hope we don't. I hope we don't spend $750 because I hope the bids come in better.
The worst
I don't have
case
a plan.
scenario is about 70,000 in debt service. That's the worst case scenario.
This would cover 30,000, just saying, but on top of that, I understand hope 6 months ago when we talked about it, but now we're 4 months from the expense.
You can put the $750 in, that's fine, but we gotta earmark a revenue for that, to do that. Not just the $750 that you get from the bank, but you gotta
Yeah.
put in, depending on what you choose, and I've got 3 amps scheduled back there, 10, 15, and 20, between $6,000 and $8,000 a month. So, I'm not ready to tell you to do that yet. Cameron has heard you, that there's a concern about it, but until we know exactly what we're gonna be spending, and we do an appropriation at that time, and how much we're actually gonna borrow, I think you're inflating the figure, I think you're inflating the budget. And you do it by appropriation, when you come back and you get your bids in on the building, and then you decide whether you wanna paint the outside or not paint the outside, that's gonna dictate the dollar figure, and then you come back, and here's our finance plan, it's what we're proposing. But I think people in town, I don't think it's any secret that we need to finish the project. But I don't have a plan to give you where I can say with great confidence, you can drop the rates, you can do any of this kind of thing. I know for certainty tonight, 72 cents at 60% is what your budget's built on. If you wanna find some more revenues, you can drop the rate, but not drop or drop the relief rate, but not the tax rate. If you wanna pick up some more revenues to do things for other activities, or to pay debt service, or a percent on your meals tax, well, we gotta walk out of here with directions, because we gotta advertise it.
If we're considering leave it the same, I would say, like, you want to come out net zero, I would just say to be more clean and advertise to people what our actual tax rate is, where a citizen can look and say, I pay this amount of cents per. Like, move the 60% down to exactly what the state gives us, which is either 35 or 40, and then lower the tax rate to equal it out, so that we know exactly what the tax rate is and what people are paying. And it's not confusing.
What that number is?
A little bit of math, we can figure it out. I think if I remember right, the state pays up to 35%. I'm not, it could be 40.
Well, I can tell you it'd take between 38 and 39% to equal what the state
Yeah.
money is. However you guys wanna do it, it's fine, but we're gonna have to come up with a plan to deal with that on. That thing is a monster, man.
Because having it at 72 cents per and 60% relief, it is confusing to us. We think we're getting 72 cents per, and we're not. And the state's not reimbursing us up to 60%.
I think our budget reflects 72 cents with 60%. I mean, I think we have an accurate representation.
The budget is, we can talk about semantics, you can change those things at some point, but if you wanna do the math, I can go back in my office real quick and do the math and tell you what the rate needs to be, if you wanna do that, but the documents presented to you do have 60% relief at 72 cents.
And the
Is that how
lower,
everybody, excuse me,
sorry,
is
go
that
ahead.
how everybody else does it? Or is that everybody, other
The county
localities?
dropped theirs down to 41.
But I'm
He's
saying,
asking how they compute it.
no, what I'm asking is anybody else dropping the percentage and using the rate Mr. Page is saying? I agree with him. I mean, it's confusing. I mean, we do it every day. A lot of the things that we do up here is very confusing to the citizen. You know, but we do it every day. And, you know,
What I'm,
I mean, Eric's been on, he's either been on the committee with me or chaired it for your whole time on council, is that right? Yeah, so,
well, and the
So
other,
if I'm computing, and I don't know if I'm even doing this correctly, but it looks like you would drop your rate 29 cents.
right, but it would be net zero revenue. But it would be more attractive to people with economic development as well. I mean, I'm just saying, 72 cents minus 20, whatever, I mean, it's a lot.
Is there something that we have to do before the budget? Or can we
You
adopt
gotta
the budget?
advertise your tax rate
No, I mean, we have to advertise our tax rate before the budget, or we have to?
with the budget. You gotta advertise 29-cent reduction from 72 or whatever it's
I
gonna be.
didn't know if the numbers were equal in the end, if that's something we could change later. If the revenues were equal in the end, at the same,
what we're here for.
close to the same dollar amount.
I mean, you make that in motion, I'll go back and do the math and come up with the correct figure.
well, I mean, if that's, by common consent, if that's what the council wants to do, y'all can do this before you advertise. We don't need to take up any more time tonight.
So we just go back to
Please.
the
But I mean, what is,
39%.
I think there's more calculation than just taking 72
So-
and doing 60.
members of the finance committee, my question is, do you wanna eliminate the percentage of relief? Or you just wanna leave it like you have it? What
I
it,
think that's something we should pursue, but I don't think that at this time we're prepared to do that, being that we have other rates that we have to adjust as well.
okay,
I see where it'd be
you wanna
different.
leave it like it is?
Economically, people would
You
look
want to
at it.
change it?
Economically,
But I think
not only
it's so
that,
close now where it's like,
it's easier where the citizen will understand, and we know 100%. There's not a lot, we take the math out of our equation too, you know what I mean?
Let's make that happen, okay? I'm not hearing any objection to Mr. Page's idea. I like
Well,
it, it's
I think they're
cleaner.
objecting.
Well, no,
I just
no.
don't think it's gonna be feasible. Looking at
I don't
Phil's
think
face,
it's
I
gonna
don't
be
think it's
feasible
feasible
before Monday.
for us to vote about.
I think Chrissy would give us a number like that. She does it every day.
And I'm gonna round up. I will round up. I can't round and get less money. We'll have to round up to the higher 1%.
I'm fine with that. As net neutral as possible. You know, as net neutral as
Is that good
possible.
with you guys? He comes up with the number and you
That's
advertise?
fine, as long as he's confident in the number and
I
it's
can do
feasible
it.
to do it before
Probably
Monday.
it's gonna be in the 50s or even in the 40s, but if there's a difference between 40 cents and 41 cents, for
And
example.
41,
one of the 41.
right, okay, all right. We don't need a vote.
Stay close to that net neutral number.
Mr.,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
we good? I'm gonna move on to, Mr. Miller's asked me about the, HR position. What? Where we stand with that?
It's not included in your budget. I could not find the revenues to do it. If you guys find revenues through tax increases or some reductions in the budget, by all means, we've already taken $72,000 out of your general fund to balance the budget. If it's something that's a priority of council, by all means, if you wanna raise tax rates, we have to have another public hearing to do so, other than just a budget public hearing, because it's an equalization year, or, so we can do that by all means. And, real estate taxes bring about, 18 cents, or $19,000 per penny, so about $80,000, so we would need about a nickel on the tax rate. If that's the choice you want to go, or we can put on personal property, or we can find cuts in a bunch of other things that you don't want to do. So, it can be done, by all means, but you gotta get something, you gotta get revenue, or, because it's a pretty big deal, it's not a $3,500 Christmas bonus, it's $80,000 with benefits. And it can be done, but you're right, you gotta bite the bullet, no, you gotta.
The, HR position, if I'm not mistaken, we, voted on that, last year to
I
get a
think you
position
have.
for that. And we keep putting it off, to keep getting pushed back and pushed back.
You gotta pay for it.
But it was said last year in this budget that it would be put in this this year's budget.
Let's go. I'm good. All you need to do is tell me to put it in the
Well, I
budget.
mean, it
and we'll
seems
do it.
like ain't nobody made no plan for it. I mean, we stood up here last year and you told everybody, this year we will have it in the budget. And then we get up here, I mean, here we go again. We said we were gonna do something, we didn't do it.
My
And
budget,
this was a promise.
I'm obligated to provide you a balanced budget every year. What you do with that is up to you guys. This is your budget now. If you'd like to do a human resource officer, by all means, say that's the case, and we will make it so. But I may need you to agree to raise some rates.
What's your pleasure, council?
I don't mean to interrupt, I wasn't at the May 20th meeting, so I apologize, but doesn't this Baycor company offer?
Yeah, I was about to ask the same thing.
That y'all approved of?
They do.
And we've just signed the agreement, and it is my recommendation that we send all of our employment policies and procedures to them and ask them to review it.
Well, there's no problem with that.
If we can do that and as soon as possible, that would be great.
Let's stay on point, but that's.
No, it is on point, because if you're gonna hire an HR person, they need to come in with good HR policies already in place. If that's something that's gonna be done, you know?
Is the HR included though?
For Baycorp.
Yes.
I don't think we need a full-time in-house HR person. I think we need a firm that we can go to when there's complaints and issues that don't have relationships, and they're not, I mean, what are they gonna do, sit here all day long and twiddle their thumbs?
I think originally we said that the person would work off-site, it wouldn't be a full-time position.
But they're
And
gonna
then we
be
came to the
controlled.
full-time position. However, I think if Baycor is gonna do it, we need to reach out to them and see what they're currently doing
That's
in
right.
their policy for the town. We just can't say they're gonna do it, because they may not be equipped to do it.
Right,
So
that's
let's
what
do
I'm
some
saying.
investigation. We did sign the contract with them, but we have to do our homework. So let me be happy when I said that we're not gonna get the HR position that we was promised that we was gonna get.
Utilize I hear what you're saying, utilize the
Yeah.
services that are
Well,
offered.
let's find out what they're
And see
doing.
what they do. But
See
then
what
if
they
they
do.
don't do what's right, we coming back.
But we also have an attorney that has an HR department, and that is probably your best bet, because the person who's hired isn't sitting here all day, or even down the block and under the influence of, or creating
We're not asking them
relationships.
to sit here all day,
Yeah.
Mr. Page.
We really,
Originally,
what
we're
I'm
not
saying is
asking.
we need a third party to handle these issues.
And I agree with you 100%. We always said that.
Yeah.
So that's not even up to
That's
question.
not even,
'Cause we
that's
always
not
said
even-
that.
That's not even in the Western
So
Zone.
can we ask the committee, the police and employment, to have conversations, along with Philip and whoever else, with Baycor, and actually, let's utilize the options that are given to us. I think there's a lot more that we could use in our insurance
Yep.
that we don't utilize for our 200.
They have a $5,000 grant for risk assessment. Have we ever taken them up on that offer? The last one did, and then this one does. We do. Okay.
So will you set that up there with the hookers and the floor?
Did you wanna talk about, you need to talk about the real estate equalization rate.
You wanna talk about any other ins or outs of the budget?
That's part of it. I mean,
Alright. Equalization, this is the 6-year reassessment year from Nottaway County. The value has gone up appreciably 20, 30, 40, 50%, depending on the comps for your properties. And in your documentation, I think we've also shared with you a copy of a state code section that says in an equalization year, as a result of
I
equalization.
don't have that.
As a result of reassessment, you are obligated to adjust your rate to within 101% of the tax levy, not the collection, the levy. Okay? 101%. So
Thank you.
You can have a net windfall of 1% as a result of the reassessment. Okay? Without a separate public hearing being advertised. Okay? Equalization, to stay within that 101% is 17 cents. And I've prepared something for you. And if you look at the upper left-hand corner, it'll tell you what the rate is on a particular one.
Where is this document?
The first page, is your current. Is current. And I can tell you, we've collected through the 1st of April, is that the run date for the budget? Through the 1st of April, we've collected about, on real estate, about $399,000. Okay? We've budgeted this upcoming year about $410,000. So we're pretty close to that 413, okay? If you go to the next page, that's 17 cents on a reassessed value, because if you look at your total values, they've gone from $188 million currently to the new reassessment being $241 million of real and improved properties in the town of Blacksburg, okay? So the first one is current at 22 cents, with a total value of $188 million. The next page, because we have to equalize, would bring us about $410,000 in total tax, and then there's some veterans that are exempted out of it.
So we would lose about $3,000.
No, you don't have to. At 17 cents, I believe you're gonna collect less in the levy, but it ain't appreciable. But if you go to 18 cents, that takes you above that 101%. Because your levy would be 434,000, so you would have to have a public hearing to go to 18 cents.
You had, yeah,
Yeah, you can.
So
you
if we
can
wanna be neutral, we're gonna
equalize
lose $3 grand.
17, and you may lose a little bit.
but we're gonna lose 3,000.
Well, we talked about it, you probably won't lose, you'll actually gain because of the new
New
construction.
construction's not included.
Yeah,
So I think you're okay, and new construction is exempted from
This
the
one anyway,
equalization obligation.
right? And they're probably from this tax year as well, exempt from it, so this wouldn't be an issue until next year anyway, but versus what we have right now, we're gonna lose $3,000.
and looking at the first page, I'm trying to look at the first page, does that 413, does that include the veterans deduction as well, or not?
I don't know if Jackie's gonna be able to answer that. I do think it includes
You do think so?
I think so.
Okay, because if that wasn't included, then it gets us obviously closer to the,
But see, this came from Nottaway, right?
Yeah, could you,
Wait, this is included with veteran?
They don't know.
unknown.
I think that the veterans are taken out of that.
Yeah, but the problem is she wrote in,
Yeah.
Kind
the
of question.
confusion is she wrote in the second one, but she didn't write in the first one or the second one.
You need a vote or anything?
You gotta decide 17 cents, or you wanna have a public hearing to go to 18 or more.
Well,
Make a motion for 17 cents.
Mr. Almond's moved.
It would be the equalized rate, and we'll hope we get close, but I think our new construction's gonna keep us at or above where we're at now.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Page, second. Any more discussion, council? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. What's next, Mr. Manager?
I think those were the actions that you guys took during the finance committee. What we have before you, you still have public hearings, so there's still time to make adjustments and changes. I don't think you can make your budget bigger, but you can make your budget smaller. Thus, if you wanna add the 750 and just show a revenue, you wanna label it something, but not have any debt service payments in it, because I don't know what those are gonna be, hopefully as little as possible. And if you wanna be able to tell the citizens, we put that 750 in there, then so be it. But I don't think you can adopt a budget that is greater than the one you advertise. You can, however, do an appropriation at the July meeting, once we have a plan and something in place, and we maybe have some cost estimates back that we can do. Remember, 750 was just his estimate, and that would included the outside of the building. I would prefer to do it as an appropriation when we have exact figures, okay? I prefer that. However, if you wanna do that, you can add $750,000 to the budget, and that would be money in, money out.
I'm not saying what you're doing is saying, I'm just saying the optics of it are very bad. To pass something that goes into effect July 1st and then come back July 15th, and now we've added so much money to it. I mean, y'all are on the finance committee, I mean, it's up to
We haven't
y'all.
voted to spend it yet.
Yeah, I don't think, first of all, we're gonna have a number by July, I think this could be more
It
of
could
a
be September.
September, October, and I understand what you're saying. And I want us to budget what we need to budget, and I hate appropriations, as anybody in here knows. But what number do you throw out there? And where do you get it from? That's the question.
We haven't voted to spend it yet either, which I'm not saying we wouldn't.
Right.
But we don't have a number to vote on, which means we don't have a number to budget.
I'd rather it be an exact
I understand, I understand where you're coming from, but this is one of those things where we're, like, eat crows because of how it's fallen and not getting getting awarded that grant, it's,
Yeah, and I get it. I'm not saying it's administration's fault, but there's a pretty large expense that should be in this budget. It's not, and I get that we don't have numbers, but you're talking September, October, and that project's done December. You know what I mean? So, I mean, completed, so,
Either way is fine.
yeah.
like the mayor said, our worst case scenario is, I mean, you're gonna have $70,000 debt service that we'll have to find.
But you are gonna have to have a revenue for that, and it can't just be, ooh, with $750,000 in the bank, we'll show that's right. You're gonna, if you do put the debt service in, you've gotta say, that's coming from personal property tax or real estate
They're not
tax
gonna
or
give you
real
money
tax
without
or
it.
whatever. That you gotta do. And I can tell you, you're going to have some expenses. From a line of credit, we have a benchmark bank, we need to tap that, so you're gonna have an interest-only situation going with that.
Will there be other financing options like bonds and other things that you're gonna present to us?
Pardon?
Other financing options like bonds or shop
yeah,
out the loan, maybe we can get a
started
really
that
low rate.
Discussion, and we've got AM schedules for 10, 15, and 20 years. I think ultimately we're gonna have to, once I have better figures and better numbers, we're gonna have to solicit proposals.
Our wonderful Miss Bryant, I have a feeling is gonna come through for us.
I have faith in her, and I said that 4 or 5 months ago, but
Vote for Maywood,
So,
you
I
can't
really,
stay in Maywood.
to be honest, ultimately, in the back of my head, I'm saying, please, Lord, let's get something. So,
So if we can get that, then that will really,
it's a, hopefully.
I'll come back with a full detailed plan. If you wanna put 750 and 750 in, we can do that, and increase the total amount of budget, or you can come back with an appropriation and deal with it at that point. If you need to raise taxes,
Appropriation, but
herein lies the issue. If we come back with a plan where we need more money, you're gonna have to help me find some more money to make that payment.
well, I mean, I know our payments for CDs coming in January, but I mean, technically could be the debt service for the
for
year.
that 1 year, the
For the
problem
year,
is
yeah.
we don't know what that interest rate was.
Well, I know, but I think it brings in 150,000. So if it is a
It's already
70,000,
spent, isn't it? You already spent the,
I feel like we've used it somewhere this year.
no, I'm talking about for the new cycle coming up. The new cycle coming up, July 1st on.
Everything you've got invested comes to maturity in January of 20.
Right,
but
and
it's
so
included in the budget? We're using that money?
I'll get that money being reinvested back in, all the interest income being.
so there's your debt service. So what you do is if you take the loan out in September, October, whatever the amount is, you have your debt service for 3 months, and then in January you pay for the debt service. It's only going to take up half. You reinvest the other half. I'm just saying, if it has to be done.
Because we just going on and
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
and we
what in
gotta
the world?
look-
I know the
I see what you're
residents are
saying.
saying, what are we talking about? We can
Again,
look.
I personally think it's cleaner for, and make our citizens know that, yes, we may have a $750,000 debt coming up, but we're not gonna inflate the budget.
No, and I don't
Knowing that.
think we got to raise taxes either. I think there is some revenue there, and we could just reinvest it until we get another revenue source. Yeah,
Yeah, I can tell you, when you get your new CD though, you ain't gonna get that rate.
yeah, I know.
So, another thing the finance committee talked about was our discretionary funding. Specifically, the difference between our normal discretionary and agency funding. Before, we kind of lumped them together to where we're either pulling or over pulling most likely from our discretionary. So we decided that it would be best to separate those line items and separate our discretionary for softball teams, plaques, all that good stuff, to $3,000, and then our agency funding to $12,000 for things like Juneteenth and chamber or wherever else.
Which is currently 15,000 on discretionary now, so we're not changing anything,
You're just,
except for making it cleaner.
you're
Right
itemizing it.
category.
Because we need to know, and Jackie
You're
started
itemizing it.
recently actually putting a tab in our packet to show us what we spent, because we've got to be good stewards of money.
Right.
So this is just.
You itemized it, that's all. You just made it clear where it was going.
Jennifer, you got a motion to go into closed session personnel? You got it handy?
I have my stuff in here.
Yeah, I'm gonna need that in just a second.
There was also some mixed discussion on putting a limit per agency. There were some members in favor and some that weren't, on putting a limit, or you come up here, Ray, we're only gonna give agencies $2,500, or we're gonna cap it, or, however, there was mixed discussion on that, and it was mixed enough that we thought it probably needs to go to the full council to talk about, because we weren't gonna agree with it.
I watched the video, and I just want to point out, the Arts and Crafts Festival was mentioned about 9 times. We have never asked for funds for the Arts and Crafts Festival. It's not being moved out of town, okay?